Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the Reign of Books. I'm Josh. I'm joined by John tonight. This is our weekly series, REIGNfall, where we talk about book topics, fiction, and a smidge of the publishing industry. Tonight's topic is book series. How fast or how slow should they be written? Because you have only a few options. If you write it fast, it's usually because you got a deal and your publisher's making you write it fast. And if you write it slow, it means it could mean a number of things. I mean, Johnny, I have some theories. It could mean like you have a mega hit on your hands and you don't want to screw it up. So you're taking literally my entire adult lifetime, George R. R. Martin, to finish The Song of Ice and Fire. Or it means that you moved on to other things. In Stephen King's case, he has a lot of other work, and it took him 30 years to finish one of his series that we're in love with right now, the Dark Tower series. So there's lots to discuss on this. And we were talking earlier, is there really a good series that you can write in a short amount of time? We might be biased right out the gate, but I'm just talking for myself.
Well, I am biased about it. But the problem with this discussion is that you have books and series that you know are written very quickly for whatever reason, and they sell. And people pick them up and read them, and they love them, and they read all the books in the series, and the series has 32 books. Piers Anthony, for instance. We haven't actually read one of his. I wouldn't say he's a Tolkien, okay? But my opinion is that you have to take your time. But that's because I want to read stuff that really matters. I want to read stuff that really is coming from the author's heart and the depths of their mind and the things they care about, and issues and issues throughout history of mankind. And I don't think you're going to get that by writing it fast. But I think the problem is that the ones that are written fast, they still sell.
So you think it's like collective hypnosis? It's basically trending books, and you have different markets that work that way. I mean, not to pick on certain markets, but we will. Young adult fiction. If you have a hot property and it gets a movie deal, then all of a sudden you have motivation, you have your 15 minutes of fame to continue writing. So again, I'm going to try to think within this period of time, a good series that was written quickly. I don't know how quickly the Hunger Games trilogy was written, and I would contend that it could have been a 4-part series, because without any spoilers, the 4th book was really a good commentary on war, collateral damage in war, on growing up, and not shying away from who you are. So it's a pretty good coming of age story with a young female heroine. So anyway, I don't know, and I'm going to look up how fast Suzanne Collins wrote that series. But one series that was written quickly and people said just trailed off was Divergent, another young adult series. So me looking for interesting fiction that's written for younger audiences, it's a disappointment when they are just rushed out the gate. And I can have my own judgment if I read Divergent series, but it doesn't have universal acclaim like the Hunger Games trilogy.
Well, since I did kind of express my bias already, for this discussion, I did want to focus a little bit on what would you do if you were going to write one quickly. And I'm really not meaning to be facetious. Hopefully we have fun with it, but I'm really not trying to be snarky about it at all. I think a lot of times a series can be picked up because the author just has a really cool concept, right? And then they kind of get roped into that. Okay, you have a year to spit out this book. And it's not that they don't have a great concept, but they couldn't come up with an even better story. They just get bound to a time frame, and they've got to push out what they come up with in that time frame. And I think a lot of times you'll see them follow a formula, kind of like a Bob Ross method, right? Remember the guy on public network television, the painter, and he always had some trees, and he had a lake, and there was a mountain in the background, and some sun, and maybe some clouds in the sky, right? And so you can fall into that and spit out some pretty cool stuff to read, right? I mean, if you've included elements of fantasy or sci-fi, as long as I've got laser guns, people shooting at each other, spaceships going at light speed, or a magic sword, and there's some trolls, and maybe little heads being lopped off, that kind of stuff, right? People are going to want to read it, and that is kind of cool. So you can follow the formula. Well, you can always have the good guys win, right? You pepper it in with a little bit of drama. Sometimes the good guy gets framed, right? Tables get turned, but eventually he's going to win, right? What are your thoughts on that? I have more, but I don't want to talk for 20 minutes and not give you a chance to.
No, there are guilty pleasures, and we all have them. Some books, take a lot of mental ability to absorb these complex, huge worlds, and sometimes you want, I guess, smaller books with narratives that are more, straightforward. So I can't sit here and dog on any books that aren't complex, and just want to tell a simple story. I did find out that Hunger Games was written, the successive trilogy was written back to back to back, 2008, 2009, 2010. So that kudos. I found this series where you prove that you put your mind to it, it can be written quickly and well done. But I don't have lots of opinions on whether authors are doing the right thing or wrong thing if they're doing it quickly. I do know the pressures of the publishing industry. The market is flooded. I'd say there's a glut of stories, and how do you know what's good and what's bad? You have to obviously read reviews. You have to sit here and really vet the literature and kind of figure out what you want to read, and just go through this whole process to finally get to a book that maybe won't be a waste of time. And that's the thing. Series, if it's a series, that complicates the matter. If it piddles out at the end, you're wasting more time because it was a series versus a single book.
Yeah, I think not all you really have to do, but a huge piece of it is creating one or two or three, however many likable characters. If you can just get the reader to buy in to liking that character, well, then you can do a number of things with your story. Even if you're really, if you're focusing on your concept or your characters more than actually quality writing, I think you can still come out on top, right, as far as pushing out a book quickly. And I would also like to say, I think that people that listen to this don't come in with a misconception of what you've seen in the theater or on TV versus the actual book, right? If someone has a really cool concept, they could push out a book and it's really not all that good, and I wouldn't want to read it because I don't again, my bias is I want you to take your time as the writer because I just want a really good deep story. I don't want just surface cool concept, little characters, haha, great, throw it away when you're done. I want a good story that I put on my bookshelf and I'm proud to have. But don't be confused with someone who pushes out a cool concept and pushes out a book that's really mediocre, but then a quality movie maker gets a hold of it and turns it into a great movie. So don't come in with that bias because it's really two totally different things. And I'm really speaking for myself, right? I've seen a lot of movies that I know were books first, and I think it's good, but the book may not really be all that good, right? The movie was good, but not the book. So
that's an interesting theory because usually it's vice versa, but that on the rare occasion it can be and is true. Obviously they rewrite and have a better screenplay. I'd say the impetus for this conversation for me was looking at the Game of Thrones series, which before before it became a show, I sat here and read the first few books and I was mesmerized. This thing really deserves the praise that it gets because it's a phenomenal bunch of people that feel real. They feel like they lived in another age. It's the modern Lord of the Rings as it's been compared to. So the thing is, it's in the middle of the series, and so I'm torn. I'm not going to finish watching the show. I even don't want to get to the last book, A Dance with Dragons, because it's just heartbreaking to have to wait. So it's really interesting, John. We've tried to pick out great stories where we've had the benefit of the stories being finished. They're complete. We get to enjoy them back to back and really see this year's culmination of work. In some instances, these authors' life work. These are their magnum opuses, and we get to read them at one time. So I can't really begrudge a writer if he takes his time, like George R. R. Martin, and I hope he finishes out on top. But I can't begrudge a writer if you start off good and you end up bad. So I don't care how quickly or how long you take to write the story. I think at the end of the day, it's not fizzling out at the end. So I think that's my verdict.
I will throw a curveball at you. If you could write a series of short stories and compile them into multiple novels, you may have a win there. You probably write that pretty quickly because you don't really have time in a short story to get all that deep into the world and the characters, and you have to do a good surface job with a little bit of depth and go. I think in that way you can certainly find some good success where people would think it's a keeper. But my verdict is like I've said it already. I want someone to take their time. Now, if they can spit it out in a year and they tell me they've taken their time, okay, and I'll read it. But we'll see, because as we know from what we've read in our project, a lot of these really good books that are worth keeping, we know the author's taken quite a while to do it, 4 years sometimes.
And I think the discerning reader can take a look at the research, or look at the detail rather, in the book, and you can tell if there's a lot of research done or not. And I'm trying to be as objective as I can. Guilty pleasure, John. I'm actually admitting this, but there was a young adult fiction series, which I don't even know. It's called the Lunar Chronicles, I'm pretty sure. I'm on book 1. It's basically Cinderella as a cyborg in the future. Yeah, so sue me. It's pretty good for a young adult story. But the point is the author strings together a fairly respectable plot, but it's a bare thread in a couple of areas. Plus, she didn't do her research. It's just not that deep. And so I guarantee it probably took a few months to write the book. But I all respect for what she was able to accomplish. But you can tell the difference between Neil Stephenson's Seven Eves, which we're finishing up, which is this magnum opus of the future of mankind and how we survived. And it's so detailed. The guy literally talked to experts around the world to flesh out this hugely imaginative and very complex, this could be our future type world. So anyway, just thought I might throw it out there saying, yeah, take your time. Give us a good story. I don't care if it takes a day or 10 years. I can't wait to read it.
But look, listeners, if you disagree and you know of a series or a book, period, that was written quickly and really is good, let us know, because I want to check that out.
What's your definition of quickly?
Yeah, I don't want to go there. That's a very deep rabbit hole.
Hey,
Probably
but The Martian,
year, right? Let's set it at a year.
A year, yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. I hope audiences don't get so hungry and get so fickle and kind of just move on to the next thing if they can't wait at least a year. But you were right earlier about The Martian, or rather about blogging your story and then compiling it into a book. The Martian was written as a series of episodic short stories, and then I also read some zombie novels. So just, I guess you could say, does it depend on the type of story to get away with that? I don't know. I mean, frankly, that probably is a different writing method, but it's enjoyable in its own right. So anyway, all right. So good stories. We're looking after you. We're looking for you. And Johnny, like you said, I want to hear from any people who might have a good series that was just spit out and you got some prolific Mozart's or Leonardo da Vinci's, whatever. So, but thanks for joining us on REIGNfall. This is our weekly series on book topics, the world of fiction, and sometimes publishing, because, they bring us the goods. But check us out on reignofbooks.com and our long form podcast at reignofbooks.com, as in the rule of books, not the weather.